The rain hammered the chapel roof like gunfire from a forgotten war, and Elias Hawthorne stood at the altar in his rented tuxedo, heart slamming against his ribs as if it might finally break free. Wyatt Kane's hand trembled in his, warm and calloused from years of hauling lobster traps turned tech startup pitches. But Eli could only see the ghost of the boy who'd once shoved him into the snow-dusted lockers of Ridge Valley High, whispering faggot like a curse that stuck. "I do," Wyatt said, voice steady as the Puget Sound beyond the stained-glass windows, and Eli echoed it back, the words tasting like ash on his tongue, because love, he'd learned the hard way, was just another word for surrender. But that was the lie he told himself on their wedding day, 3 years into the blur of rediscovery, when Seattle's endless gray skies mirrored the fog in his chest. Eli had come here after college, fleeing the salt-stung air of Maine for the promise of reinvention in the Emerald City, where baristas knew your coffee order and no one asked about your scars. He was 28 then, scraping by as a freelance graphic designer in a cramped Capitol Hill walk-up, sketching logos for craft breweries and indie bands while nursing hangovers from too many nights at the Baltic Room. Life was a quiet rhythm of takeout pho and late-night sketches, until Wyatt Kane walked back in like a storm front nobody saw coming. It started at a gallery opening in Pioneer Square, one of those pretentious affairs where the wine was free and the art was just wallpaper for networking. Eli was there for a client's exhibit, vintage Polaroids of abandoned lighthouses, moody shots that tugged at his main roots. He sipped his Pinot, half listening to a conversation about blockchain in the arts, when a laugh cut through the murmur like a foghorn. Low, rough, unmistakable. Eli turned, and there he was, Wyatt, broader now, shoulders filled out under a tailored blazer, blonde hair cropped close, those hazel eyes scanning the room with the easy confidence of a man who'd traded small-town bitterness for Silicon Valley shine. But Seattle? Wyatt had moved here too, chasing venture capital for some app that connected urban gardeners or something equally earnest. Their eyes locked, and the air thickened. Eli's pulse stuttered, fight or flight, the old instincts kicking in. Wyatt froze mid-sip, his glass hovering like he'd forgotten how to drink. Then, slowly, he crossed the room, weaving through clusters of hipsters in ironic teas, until he was close enough that Eli could smell the cedar cologne masking the faint brine of the sea. "Eli," Wyatt said, voice pitched low, like they were sharing state secrets. "Holy shit, Elias Hawthorne, from Ridge Valley." "Yeah," Eli managed, his throat dry as the summer dunes back home. Wyatt Kane. Small world. It wasn't a question. The gallery lights cast shadows across Wyatt's face, softening the sharp jawline Eli remembered from nightmares. But the eyes were the same, piercing, unreadable. They talked, halting at first, like two ex-cons sizing up a parole board. Wyatt bought him another glass of wine, then a third, and the story spilled out in fragments. Eli's escape to art school in Boston, the freelance gigs that kept him afloat, Wyatt's tour in the Marines after high school, the honorable discharge that led to coding boot camps and this tech life. No mention of the lockers, the taunts, the way Wyatt's crew had cornered Eli behind the gym one February afternoon, snow crunching under their boots as fists flew and slurs landed like blows. Eli waited for it, the elephant in the room, but Wyatt danced around it, all charm and deflection. "You look good, man. Grown into yourself." By closing time, they were the last ones out, stumbling into the drizzle under the market's shadow. Wyatt hailed a cab but didn't get in. "Coffee tomorrow? My treat." Neutral ground. Eli nodded before his brain caught up, the old pull of curiosity warring with the scar tissue. What harm in coffee? He'd spent years building walls. One crack wouldn't bring them down. The coffee turned into dinner at a dim Pike Place spot, oysters on the half-shell and stories that skirted the edges of their shared hell. Wyatt was funny now, self-deprecating in a way the teenage bully never was, tales of botched deployments and startup fails that had Eli laughing despite himself. There was a spark, undeniable, the kind that hummed like feedback from an amp. Eli chalked it up to the wine, the city lights blurring the past. But when Wyatt's knee brushed his under the table, lingering just a beat too long, Eli felt the heat rise, a forbidden echo of the crushes he'd buried deep. Weeks blurred into months, dates that weren't called dates, hikes up to Rattlesnake Ledge where the Cascade views stretched like forgiveness, craft beer tastings in Fremont, Wyatt's arm slung casual over the back of Eli's stool. Eli found himself sketching Wyatt in stolen moments, hazel eyes narrowed against the sun, the way his laugh lines crinkled like weathered driftwood. It was intoxicating, this version of Wyatt. Vulnerable, hungry for connection after years of his own ghosts. He talked about his ex, a woman from the Marines who'd left him for stability. About the app, Rooted, that matched city folks with community gardens, a quiet atonement for roots he'd once tried to uproot in others. Eli didn't push about Ridge Valley. Not yet. The past was a riptide. Best not to swim too close. Instead, he let himself fall, slow and deliberate, into the rhythm of Wyatt's touch. The first kiss under the cherry blossoms in the quad, tentative and tasting of rain. The nights tangled in Wyatt's queen and loft, bodies mapping apologies neither had voiced. Love, Eli thought, was a rewrite, a chance to edit the script. By their 6-month mark, he was packing boxes for the move. His walk-up traded for shared space overlooking the sound. But the shadows lingered. Eli woke some nights to Wyatt's murmurs in the dark. Half-formed regrets spilling out in sleep. Sorry. Shouldn't have. Eli would pull him close, whispering it's okay, even as his own heart twisted. Ridge Valley was a specter in their periphery. The annual emails from his sister about town gossip. The faded yearbook photo Wyatt kept tucked in a drawer like contraband. Eli convinced himself it was water under the bridge, that time had sanded the edges smooth. The proposal came on a ferry to Bainbridge, the Olympic Mountains jagged against the horizon like teeth. Wyatt dropped to one knee on the deck, ring glinting in the salt spray. A simple platinum band etched with waves. I want to build something real with you, Eli. No more running. Tears stung Eli's eyes, not from joy alone but from the weight of what it meant. Forgiveness without words, a vow to outrun the boys they'd been. Yes, he said, and meant it, pulling Wyatt up into a kiss that tasted like salt and second chances. The wedding planning was a whirlwind of Pinterest boards and bridezilla jokes. Their ceremony a low-key affair at a waterfront chapel in Alki Beach. Friends from Eli's art circle mingled with Wyatt's tech bros. The air thick with laughter and the scent of cedar from the wreaths. Eli's sister, Lena, flew in from Maine, hugging him tight with a whispered, "You sure about this one?" He nodded, throat tight, because doubt was a luxury he couldn't afford. As the officiant pronounced them bound, Wyatt's grip tightened, and Eli searched his face for cracks. None showed. They danced their first as husbands to Wonderwall, Oasis crooning about saviors, and for a moment, Eli believed it. The fairy tale grafted onto fractured roots. The reception spilled into bonfires on the beach, sparks rising like prayers into the night. Wyatt pulled him aside, away from the glow, his breath warm against Eli's ear. I love you, Hawthorne, more than I knew how to back then. Back then. The words hung, unspoken freight. Eli smiled, clinked his glass to Wyatt's. To us? He toasted, and drank deep, ignoring the bitter aftertaste. The honeymoon in the San Juans was a haze of kayaks and king crab, island hopping under skies that finally broke blue. Eli traced the freckles across Wyatt's shoulders in the mornings, memorizing the map of a man remade. They talked dreams then, Wyatt's app hitting 1 million users, Eli launching a graphic novel about coastal ghosts. No past, just future, sketched in lazy strokes on napkins. Back in Seattle, life settled into domestic poetry. Coffee grinds shared, arguments over whose turn it was for dishes that ended in make-up sex on the kitchen floor. Eli's freelance picked up, commissions for album covers and murals that paid the bills without chaining him to a desk. Wyatt's Rooted took off, venture rounds rolling in like tides, but he stayed grounded, volunteering at community plots in the Central District, dirt under his nails as he taught kids to plant basil. It was in those quiet evenings, sunset gilding the loft's exposed beams, that Eli first noticed the fraying. Wyatt would stare out at the sound, jaw set like he was bracing for a squall. Penny for your thoughts? Eli would tease, sliding onto the couch beside him, hand on his thigh. Just grateful, Wyatt would say, pulling him close, but his eyes drifted, haunted by horizons Eli couldn't chart. Eli filled the silences with his own stories, sketches of Ridge Valley summers, clamming with his dad before the cancer came, the way the fog rolled in like a shroud. He shared the lighter scars first. The prom he skipped, the closet door he kicked open at 18 in a Boston dorm. Wyatt listened, nodding, his fingers interlacing with Eli's like anchors. One night, after a gallery crawl in Belltown, They stumbled home buzzed on gin and gallery cheese. Wyatt paused in the doorway, keys jangling forgotten in his hand. Eli, there's something I need to say. The words landed soft, but Eli's stomach dropped, the old paranoia flaring. Not now, not when things were good. It's about home, Wyatt continued, sinking onto the bed. About us. Back in Ridge Valley. Eli sat beside him, the mattress dipping like quicksand. Wyatt's voice cracked as he started. Halting confessions of a teenage rage born from his own father's belt. The whispers in the locker room about Wyatt's weird uncle who died by suicide. The fear that clawed him into cruelty. You were different. Brave in a way I hated because I wasn't. I picked on you to feel big, to drown out the noise in my head. And God, Eli, it was wrong. So fucking wrong. The air went still, the city hum fading to a roar in Eli's ears. He'd waited years for this, hadn't he? The apology, the reckoning. But hearing it now, after vows and shared leases, it landed like a gut punch. Not cathartic, but corrosive. Why now? Eli whispered, voice steady by will alone. After all this? Wyatt's eyes glistened, hazel turning stormy. Because I love you enough to stop hiding. I thought time would bury it, but it's been eating me alive. Every time you laugh, I see the kid I hurt. Marrying you. It's my way of making it right. Eli stood, pacing to the window, the space needles glow mocking their domestic bliss. Rage bubbled, hot and unfamiliar. Not at the boy Wyatt had been, but at the man who'd waited until their rings were soldered on to unburden himself. Making it right, Eli echoed, bitter. Like a checkmark on your redemption arc? No. Wyatt reached for him, but Eli stepped back, the distance a chasm. They didn't sleep that night. Wyatt talked until dawn, unraveling the threads. The therapy he'd started in the Marines, the letters he'd drafted and burned, the terror of losing Eli before he could confess. Eli listened, numb, the words washing over him like tide pools, revealing, but leaving him exposed. By morning, he called in sick to his client, brewed coffee strong enough to strip paint, and sat across from Wyatt at the kitchen island. I forgive you, he said finally, the words mechanical, for the past. But this, dropping it now like it's a gift, it changes everything. Wyatt's face crumpled, but Eli was already retreating inward, sketching furiously in his notebook. Jagged lines of lighthouses cracking under waves. The loft felt smaller after that, walls pressing in with the weight of unspoken history. They tried counseling, a queer-affirming therapist in the U District named Marisol, her office smelling of sage and salt lamps. Sessions were excavations. Wyatt owning his toxicity, Eli unpacking the hypervigilance that made him flinch at raised voices. Trust is a muscle, Marisol said, her voice steady as a compass. You've got to rebuild it, thread by thread. For a while it worked. Date nights recommitted. Picnics in Discovery Park, where Wyatt proposed again, sans ring, just promises whispered in the ferns. Eli's graphic novel took shape, pages filled with spectral boys haunting Maine shores, catharsis in charcoal. Wyatt's app launched nationally, rooted trending on app stores, and he dedicated the milestone to Eli in a quiet toast. To the man who taught me to grow. But the apology lingered like damp rot. Eli caught himself scanning Wyatt's face for tells, the micro-expressions of the bully beneath the husband. Paranoia crept in during quiet moments. A work call where Wyatt's voice sharpened. A night out where he lingered too long with an old Marine buddy. You're projecting, Marisol warned gently. The past isn't prophecy. Eli nodded, but doubt was a vine, twisting deeper. The fracture widened on their first anniversary, a trip back to Ridge Valley for Lena's wedding. Eli hadn't set foot there in a decade. The invitation a siren call he couldn't resist. The drive up I-5 to the ferry. Then the winding coastal road. Felt like rewinding tape. Pine-scented air thick with memory. Wyatt gripped the wheel white-knuckled. The Volvo humming over potholes. It'll be fine, Eli said, more to himself. Just ghosts. Ridge Valley hadn't changed. Clabbered houses sagging under salt air. The high school a squat brick fortress overlooking the harbor. Lena's rehearsal dinner at the Tide's End Inn was a crush of locals. Fishermen in flannel, Eli's cousins nursing IPAs. Wyatt charmed them effortlessly, trading barbs about lobster prices. But Eli saw the strain, the way his smile didn't reach his eyes. That night, in the inn's creaky room, Wyatt broke. This place is poison. Seeing it with you, knowing what I did here, it's like choking on brine. Eli pulled him close, murmuring comforts. But inside, the old wounds wept. The wedding itself was a blur of vows and violins. Lena radiant in lace, her groom a sturdy lobsterman named Tuck. As best man, Eli toasted with a story of sibling pranks, laughter rippling. But his eyes met Wyatt's across the barn, and the connection sparked, raw electric, laced with pain. They stayed a week, wandering the dunes where Eli had once hidden to cry, Wyatt trailing like a penitent. One afternoon, at the old pier where teenagers carved hearts into pilings, Wyatt stopped, tracing a faded WK+ with his thumb. This was me dreaming stupid, before I ruined everything. His voice cracked, and he turned to Eli, eyes fierce. I was in love with you even then, scared shitless, so I lashed out. That's the truth I buried deepest. Eli reeled, the confession a tidal wave. Love? From the boy who'd made his lockers a prison? You don't get to rewrite it like that, he snapped, voice whipping in the wind. Not after I've spent years hating the mirror because of you. Wyatt flinched but didn't back down. Then hate me, but don't let it steal our now. The drive home was silence, the ferry's wake churning like Eli's gut. Back in Seattle, the loft echoed with avoidance. Wyatt buried in code, Eli in deadlines. The muscle Marisol mentioned atrophied, trust fraying to threads. Eli started running again, pounding Queen and hills until his lungs burned, chasing the clarity of exhaustion. Sketches turned darker. Husbands dissolving into mist, apologies floating like buoys too far to grasp. The second anniversary crept up like fog off the sound, thick and disorienting. Eli woke to Wyatt's note on the counter. Fresh croissants from Le Panier. A scribbled, "One more year of you saving me." His chest ached, a hollow drum. Saving him. The words that once thrilled now chafed, like wool against raw skin. He texted a quick heart emoji, then laced up for a run, the city unfolding in relentless green. Joggers in the Chittenden locks, salmon leaping against the current like desperate freedoms. Work became his refuge. The graphic novel, Tide Ghosts, found a small press in Portland, queer-owned, hungry for coastal queer tales. Eli poured himself into revisions, panels of boys kissing in hidden coves, bullies dissolving into sea foam. Launch events beckoned. Readings at Elliott Bay, signings in Provincetown come summer. Wyatt celebrated with champagne, toasting Eli's genius. But the pride in his eyes felt borrowed, like he was applauding a performance he'd scripted. Doubt metastasized in the quiet hours. Eli replayed Ridge Valley like a cursed reel. The shove into snow, the slur echoing off brick. The way Wyatt's laugh had cut deepest because it was beautiful even then. That confession on the pier. Love twisted into hate. It explained but didn't excuse. Therapy shifted. Marisol probing Eli's edges now. You're grieving the boy you were, she said one rainy Tuesday, rain lashing the office windows, and fearing the man he might become again. I'm not, Eli lied, fingers twisting his ring. But he was. Paranoia bloomed. Wyatt's late nights at co-working spaces. The flirty barista at Vivace who lingered too long. One evening, scrolling Wyatt's phone while he showered. A betrayal Eli hated himself for. He found texts from an old Marine buddy, casual bro talk laced with "miss those days" nostalgia. Nothing damning, but enough to ignite the fuse. The blow-up came over dinner, takeout Thai from a Capitol Hill hole-in-the-wall. Wyatt mentioned expanding Rooted to Maine. Partnerships with coastal co-ops. A nod to roots. It could be healing, he said, eyes earnest over pad CEW. For both of us. Eli's fork clattered. Healing? You mean absolution. Parading your app in the town you terrorized me in, like it's some virtue signal. Wyatt's face hardened. The old jaw set. It's not about me. It's about giving back. To who? The kids still getting shoved? Or to the ghost of Wyatt Kane? So you can sleep without the devil on your shoulder. Eli's voice rose, raw as stripped wire. Plates pushed aside. They circled the island like duelists, words flying. Eli accusing Wyatt of weaponizing remorse. Wyatt countering with Eli's walls. The forgiveness he'd offered now revoked like a bad check. You think marrying me fixed it? Eli shouted, tears hot. It was a bandage on a bullet wound. Wyatt slammed a palm on the counter. the sound cracking like thunder. I know. That's why I apologized, to rip it open and cauterize. But you're the one picking at the scab. The silence after was deafening. The loft a battlefield strewn with takeout cartons. Wyatt stormed to the guest room, former office, now a limbo space of stacked boxes. Eli collapsed on the couch, sobs racking him until dawn. Morning brought coffee and truces. We need space, Wyatt said, voice hollow. A trial separation. Figure out if this is love or penance. Eli nodded, numb. The word separation echoed like a death knell. But relief flickered too. Space to breathe, to untangle the knot. Wyatt moved to a sublet in Ballard, a studio overlooking the ship canal, bridges arching like unanswered questions. Eli kept the loft, its echoes louder now. Empty hangers in the closet, half-full drawers of Wyatt's socks. Days blurred into a monochrome routine. Eli threw himself into the book tour, Portland First, a cozy Elliott Bay reading where fans lingered, sharing their own coming-out scars. Your art heals, one said, a twink with eyeliner sharp as wit. Eli smiled, but inside, the irony bit. Healing for strangers, havoc at home. Seattle felt vast and isolating. Friends tiptoeing around the bomb. Lena calling from Maine. Dump the bastard if he hurts you again. But it wasn't that simple. Wyatt's love was real, woven into the fabric of their days. Wyatt checked in daily. Texts like lifelines. Thinking of you. Rooted hit 2 million users today. Wished you were here to toast. Eli replied in fragments, guarding his heart. One weekend, he drove to the peninsula, crashing with artist friends in Port Townsend. Ferry rides and forest walks, sketching ferries cutting waves. Clarity came in drips. He loved Wyatt, the man, not the myth. But the boy lingered, a shadow puppeteer. The breaking point arrived unannounced, a rainy November eve. Eli was at a launch party for a fellow author's memoir. Queer survival tales, raw and riveting. Laughter flowed, gin fizzing in veins. When his phone buzzed, Wyatt, can we talk? Now, meet me at the locks. Eli's pulse spiked, but he went, weaving through traffic to the Chittenden locks, where boats rose and fell like emotions. Wyatt waited on a bench, rain sheeting off his hood, face gaunt under the lamps. I saw a kid today, he started, voice ragged, at the garden, bullied for being gay. 14. It gutted me. Seeing my younger self in him, the poison I spread. He pulled a crumpled letter from his jacket, words scrawled in blue ink. I wrote this for you, the full truth. No holding back. Eli took it, hands shaking, but didn't open it. Why here? Why now? Because this city's our story, Eli. The locks, they let things through or they don't. I want through, but only if you do. Wyatt's eyes pleaded, hazel depths churning. Eli read by lamplight, rain blurring the ink. Pages of remorse, not just for blows but for silences. The way he'd watched Eli cry and walked away, the internalized hate he'd projected. It ended with a plea. Forgive me not for peace, but for possibility. Tears mixed with rain on Eli's cheeks. It's too late for that version of us, he said softly. The apology came after I gave you my heart whole. Now it's scarred, and I can't unsee it. Wyatt nodded, broken but unbroken. Then let me go. With love. They parted there, Wyatt's hand brushing Eli's one last time. A touch like farewell. Eli drove home through the storm, the letter clutched like a talisman. Winter clamped down on Seattle like a vice. The holidays a gauntlet of obligatory cheer. Eli strung lights alone in the loft, their glow mocking the empty tree stand Wyatt had always muscled into place. He skipped the office party, opting for a solo hike in the Olympics, snowshoeing to a ridge where the strait glittered like shattered glass. Up there, lungs burning, he screamed into the wind. Fury at Wyatt, at himself, at the boy who'd equated love with lashes. Catharsis, raw and freezing, left him hollow but lighter. The divorce papers arrived in January, courier delivered to the loft like an eviction notice. Eli signed them in Marisol's office, her sage bundle smoking softly. This isn't failure, she said, eyes kind. It's reclamation. Wyatt had been generous, half the savings, the Volvo, no contest over the loft. His note clipped to the forms. You deserve roots that don't choke. Always, W. Eli burned it in the sink that night, flames licking blue, the ash swirling down the drain like shed skin. Spring thawed the city, cherry blossoms rioting pink along the waterfront. Tide Ghosts hit shelves nationwide, reviews praising its visceral queer heart, calls from agents, a film option whisper from a Netflix scout. Eli toured the coast. San Francisco readings where drag queens hooped, LA panels on toxic masculinity. In each city, fans saw the art, not the artist's fractures, and slowly, Eli began to see himself whole. Wyatt faded to periphery. LinkedIn updates on Rooted's East Coast expansion. A mutual friend's wedding invite they both declined. Eli dated tentatively. A barista named Finn with tattooed knuckles and a laugh like summer. Coffee turning to walks in Green Lake. It was easy, unscarred kisses without history's weight. But Wyatt haunted the edges, a benchmark for what love shouldn't be. Summer brought Ridge Valley calling again. Lena's first, a boy named Jasper with Tuck's sturdy build. Eli flew east, the red-eye depositing him in Portland, Maine, then the drive north. Pines blurring past, salt air sharpening memory. The town embraced him, changed, high school art teacher now, murals on the community center walls his doing, commissioned last fall. Locals nodded respect. Eli Hawthorne, the writer fella. No whispers of the old outcast. Lena's baby shower was a backyard bash at the family cape, strung with lanterns against the dusk. Tuck grilled clams, cousins swapped yarns. Eli held Jasper, the infant's fist curling around his finger. Tiny, trusting. "You'd make a hell of a dad," Lena said, bumping his shoulder. "Maybe," Eli murmured, the word opening doors he'd bolted shut. Wyatt's shadow loomed unexpected. A care package arrived days prior. Rooted swag and Maine wildflower seeds. Note reading, "For new beginnings." Heard about the mural, proud. Eli planted them in the yard, watching shoots push through soil like stubborn hope. The real collision came at the Harbor Festival. End of summer hurrah with lobster boils and folk bands. Eli wandered the docks, sketchpad in hand, capturing weathered hulls when a voice cut through. "Still drawing the sea, Hawthorne?" He turned, and there was Wyatt. Casual in chinos and a faded Marine's tee, hazel eyes wary but warm. "What the hell are you doing here?" Eli's voice held no venom, just surprise. "App expansion," Wyatt said, shoving hands in pockets. "Pilot gardens along the coast. Thought I'd check the lay. A beat. And see if the air's clearer now." They walked the pier, waves lapping pilings like hesitant confessions. Wyatt had changed, lines etched deeper, a quiet gravity to his stance. He spoke of therapy milestones, Rooted's impact on at-risk youth programs. "It's not redemption," he admitted, "just direction." Eli nodded, the old rage muted to embers. "The book's doing well. Film buzz, even." Wyatt grinned, genuine. "Knew it would. You're a force." Conversation flowed easy, like pre-storm calm. Shared laughs over town quirks, the way the fog still rolled biblical. At the Boyle tent, they shared a picnic table, lobster shells cracking under thumbs. Wyatt's knee brushed Eli's. Accidental, electric. "I miss you," Wyatt said softly, eyes on the harbor. "Not the husband. The friend I should have been." Eli's throat tightened. "I missed that too. But the rest. It broke something." "I know." Wyatt's voice was steady. "And I'll carry that. Glad you're here, though. Means the world's still got room for us both." They parted with a hug, brief, bone deep, Wyatt heading to his rental, Eli to Lena's. That night, under the cape's eaves, Eli sketched. Two figures on a pier, backs turned, sea between them vast but not devouring. Fall pulled him back west, the tour wrapping in Vancouver, rain welcoming him home. Finn faded, good guy, wrong timing, and Eli leaned into solitude. Yoga in the mornings, gallery submissions in afternoons. Marisol declared progress. "You've integrated the shadow. Now what's the light?" The light came in waves. A solo exhibit at a Soto space, fractured tides, sold-out opening night, canvases of lovers parting, reuniting, dissolving. Critics called it a queer odyssey of grace. Netflix's option turned real. A pilot script, director attached, Eli consulting on set in pre-pro. One crisp October eve, post-exhibit high, Eli walked the locks alone. Boats rose in locks, water sluicing away the old. His phone buzzed. Wyatt saw the review. Beers to celebrate? Neutral ground. Eli hesitated, then typed, Pike Place, 7. The pub was a neutral hum, microbrews and murmurs. Wyatt slid into the booth, 2 IPAs in hand. To you, he toasted, clinking. Talk meandered. App woes, main stubborn charm. No past dredging, just present presence. As closing neared, Wyatt leaned in. Eli, if friendship's all we get, I'll take it. Grateful for the man you let me become. Eli met his gaze, the hazel steady. Friends, then. No debts. The hug outside was longer, rain light, a punctuation not period. Eli walked home lighter, the city a canvas anew. The pilot chute descended on Seattle like a creative cyclone. Location scouts clogging Fremont streets, grips hauling gear to imagined Maine shores recreated in Magnolia. Eli consulted remotely at first, script notes via Zoom from the loft, but soon he was on set. Gray mornings in a warehouse turned foggy coastal town, actors mouthing his words under rain machines. The lead, a lanky newcomer named Rowan with Eli's gray-blue eyes, nailed the quiet fury. Your story's got teeth. The director, a dyke legend from Sundance, told him over craft services. Bites and heels. Wyatt kept orbit loose. Texts about Rooted's youth grants. Invites to Mariners games Eli politely declined. Friendship took shape in margins. A hike up Green Mountain one Bluebird Sunday, summit views sprawling to infinity. They talked dreams anew, Wyatt eyeing non-profit pivots, Eli musing a sequel graphic novel, Echo Shores. No touches lingered, no what-ifs voiced. Boundaries held like seawalls. Holiday season swirled again, but this year Eli hosted Thanksgiving with his art collective, a potluck of queer kin in the loft. Laughter echoed off beams, pumpkin pie smeared on plates. Lena FaceTimed from Ridge Valley, Jasper gurgling, Tuck waving a toy lobster. Proud of you, bro, she said. Eli felt it then, roots not choking but cradling. Christmas Eve, snow dusting the sound rare and magic. Wyatt texted, Harbor lights? For old times. Eli bundled up, meeting him at Golden Gardens. Beach bonfires crackling, families bundled against chill. They walked the shore, waves whispering, fairy lights from the club twinkling distant. Remember our first ferry ride? Wyatt asked, breath fogging. Eli chuckled. How could I forget? You proposed like a bad rom-com. Wyatt's laugh was rueful. Desperate times. Pause, waves filling it. I've been seeing someone. Casual. Thought you should know. The words landed soft. No sting. Good, Eli said, meaning it. He? Sounds lucky. Her. Tech ethicist. Calls me on my shit. Wyatt kicked a shell. You? Anyone warming that loft? Eli shrugged, dipping toes. A sculptor from the exhibit. We'll see. They sat by a fire then. Strangers turned confidants, sharing cocoa from a thermos. To apologies that teach, Wyatt toasted. To hearts that mend, Eli replied. The new year dawned with Eli's name in trades, Tide Ghosts greenlit for series, casting calls buzzing. He flew to LA for meetings, palm trees a shock after evergreens, pitching arcs of redemption without erasure. Back home, spring bloomed fierce. Tulips rioting in the Arboretum, Eli's exhibit touring to NYC. Wyatt's news hit in May, a grant for rooted in Ridge Valley, community gardens on old school grounds. Want to break ground together? He asked over coffee, eyes hopeful. Eli paused, the invitation a bridge. Yeah, for the kids. The trip east was healing pilgrimage. Plane to Portland, rental car hugging the coast. Ridge Valley greeted warmer, murals bolder, his name on plaques. Groundbreaking was small. Shovels in soil, kids planting peas, Lena snapping pics. Wyatt knelt with a boy 12 and shy showing him how to till. Eli watched, chest tight. Not with old pain but possibility. That night, beers at the tide's end, Wyatt raised a glass. To full circles. Eli clinked. To straight lines forward. Summer deepened, the series filming ramping, Eli splitting time between sets and sketches. Romance budded with the sculptor, Miles. Broad-shouldered, ink-stained hands, a laugh that filled rooms. Dates were unhurried studio crawls, Picnics in Cary Park with skyline views. Miles knew the outlines of Eli's past. No dives deep. "You're a survivor," he said one dusk, fingers tracing Eli's scar. "That's sexy as hell." Eli believed him, letting walls lower brick by brick. Fall brought harvest. Tide Ghosts premiered at TIFF to acclaim, standing O for the coming out scene. Eli walked the carpet solo, tux sharp, heart full. Post-screening party. Champagne fizzing. A producer pulled him aside. "This could be your moonlight." Eli grinned, texting Miles a selfie. Wyatt a simple "we did it." Wyatt's reply, "Knew you would. Beers when you're back." Always. Winter circled back, but Eli met it armored in joy. Thanksgiving with Miles now woven in. The loft alive with his canvases leaning against walls. Christmas with Lena's family in Maine. Jasper toddling. Eli reading Tide Ghosts aloud to wide eyes. Wyatt came too as friend, his date a poised woman named Riley. Dinners mingled easy, stories overlapping without overlap. New Year's at the Locks, Eli with Miles, Wyatt with Riley. Groups converging, toasts to tides turning. "To us, all of us," Eli said, arms linked. The year turned, and Eli's life unfurled. Series renewed, graphic novel 2 inked, love with Miles deepening to talks of merging studios. Wyatt's rooted nationwide, his relationship with Riley steady. Friendships held monthly hikes, texts in crises. One spring dawn, Eli stood on his balcony, coffee steaming, sound awakening. Scars remained, faint lines on skin and soul, but they mapped a man remade. Compassionate, free, authentically his. The boy from Ridge Valley had married his hell, yes, but in the unmaking, found heaven in self. The series' second season shoot pulled Eli deeper into Hollywood's orbit. Table reads in Burbank bungalows, reshoots under relentless sun. But Seattle called home, its drizzle a balm after LA's glare. Miles' studio merged with his loft space, walls knocked for a shared atelier. Easels side by side, paint-splattered floors echoing their rhythms. Mornings started tangled in sheets, coffee brewed black, sketches traded over toast. "You're my muse," Miles teased one dawn. Charcoal-smudged fingers on Eli's hip. Eli laughed, pulling him back to bed. Love now a steady current, not a riptide. Wyatt's life paralleled, visible in glimpses, rooted TED Talk going viral. Riley's ring finger flashing in Insta posts. Their friendship endured, low-stakes anchors. A group hike to Mailbox Peak with the collective, Wyatt cracking jokes about his dad bod creeping in. Eli watched him with Riley, easy intimacies that once stung now soothed, proof that growth wasn't zero-sum. Ridge Valley tugged again that summer, Lena's second, a girl this time, and a town festival honoring Eli's murals. He flew east with Miles, introducing him to the salt air and clapboards. "This place made you," Miles said, hand in Eli's as they wandered the harbor. "And you made it better." The festival was carnival chaos. Ferris wheels creaking, fiddle bands wailing, lobster rolls dripping butter. Eli signed books at a tent, fans queuing with tales of their own tides. Kids who'd read Tide Ghosts in secret, parents grappling with truths. Wyatt arrived with Riley, her laugh bright as she charmed Lena. "Brought reinforcements," he quipped, hugging Eli tight. Later, under strung lights, Wyatt pulled Eli aside by the bonfire. "Riley's pregnant," he said, grin wide but tentative. "Due Christmas." Eli's hug was fierce. "Congratulations, man. You'll be a killer dad." Wyatt's eyes misted. "Means a lot coming from you, after everything." "Everything's the point," Eli said. "We got through." Fall premiered season 2. Critics raving the redemption arc, audiences tweeting Tide Ghosts heels. Eli hosted a watch party in the loft, collective spilling over couches, Miles' arm around him. Wyatt and Riley came, her bump just showing, toasts to family, found and forged. Winter wrapped them gentle. Eli and Miles decorating a tree, ornaments from travels, a lighthouse from Maine, a sequin star from TIFF. Christmas in Ridge Valley, flights juggled. Eli reading to Jasper and newborn Mira. Wyatt cradling his own bundle in the new year. "Full house," Lena joked, passing eggnog. Spring bloomed with Eli's third project, a memoir graphic hybrid, Salt Apologies. weaving his story unvarnished. Publisher buzzed. Netflix-eyed adaptation. Miles proposed in the arboretum, under magnolias shedding petals like confetti. Ring a hammered silver wave. "Build with me?" he asked, on one knee in dirt. "Yes," Eli breathed, pulling him up to seal it. The wedding was Seattle intimate. Alki Beach at sunset, friends in linen, vows exchanged with the sound as witness. Wyatt stood best man, Riley matron of honor, their babe cooing in a sling. "To loves that wait," Wyatt toasted, eyes knowing. Eli's reply, "To those that arrive right on time." Years layered like tides. Myra's first steps in Ridge Valley Gardens, Eli's books on syllabi, Miles' murals gracing city halls. Wyatt's family grew, twins after the first, his nonprofit a beacon for queer youth nationwide. Friendships wove tighter. Annual lock walks, all of them, kids in tow, boats rising as metaphors lived. Eli, at 40, stood on that same pier where it unraveled once, Miles' hand in his, waves lapping patient. Scars faded to stories, apologies to architecture. He'd married his hell, yes, but in the ashes, forged a heaven of his own. Truer, freer, boundless. The boy who'd made youth hell taught him that hearts, like tides, recede to reveal, not ruin, but reclamation. And in that space Eli thrived.